Welcome to the Big Biz Show, featuring insight, analysis, and a lot of stuff that's none of your business.
Hold on. This is the Big Biz Show. I think it is their business.
Making the markets work for you. Here's the man with the plan, Sully.
Well, back at work, a full 5-day work week. Here at the Big Biz Show, good to have you along today, live from the Law 400 Studios and 125 million TV homes strong. Thanks to BizTV, thanks to American Life Network, thanks to our friends at Bloomberg, and of course, let's not forget American Forces Network in 175 countries and all the ships at sea. And God bless our military men and women serving our country overseas and underway. Mike Costa, Howie Font, Mary Burt Godwin, and of course, Greg Todoroff, our executive producer. Howard, I saw last week that the S&P hits an intraday high. You guys know what intraday means when I say intraday?
Middle of the day.
Middle of the day. Yeah, middle of trading day. So in other words, stocks go like this all day long, right? Okay. This thing hit 5,500 intraday. I think we closed at 54 something, but did we end up going above it yet? Do we know?
Well,
5,500. I mean, the new target price is 6,000 by the end of the year. That's amazing for the S&P.
It's really crazy when you think about.
That's a 10% increase almost.
Well, where we were from last November, which was the last low of 42.
Yeah.
The market has just.
I mean, if you think about in terms of two ways to get wealthy in this country, you have to own something either way. You have to own a business, or you have to own some real estate. Owning a business doesn't necessarily mean you have to own a delicatessen. You can own a share of Apple. You own a business, okay? And they're both have sort of an average return on investment over time of 8 to 10%. Okay, they're both pretty much even during that time. But if you consider at the end of last year, we're at 4,200.
Yep.
And now we're at 5,500. That is a 23% increase on your. I mean, look at this. Doesn't happen every day, and it doesn't happen even every year at all. But this will tell you. We were talking about this last week, Howie, was the fact that with U.S. household expectations of income, the lowest in 10 years, the fact that consumer confidence is the lowest in rivaling 1980, that's 50 years. The market's still going. So the economy stinks, but investing is going on strong. What does that mean for us?
Well, it's like you say, Wall Street, Main Street, not the same thing. They're different forces.
Yeah.
Right now we have a couple of companies, I think the top 5 companies account for just such an inordinate amount of the market. It's kind of crazy. And we've talked about how the market weights these companies too, but we see NVIDIA since last year, it's the big story. It passed Apple, it passed Microsoft. I mean, and now it's the most important largest company in the market.
And we've had this conversation about NVIDIA for, this show's been on the air, this show's been on radio for over, gosh, I think the real date was, I spent 31 years, close to 31 years on the radio. We started in 1993, even though our logo is wrong. And on TV, we started 15 years ago. We've had these conversations about NVIDIA 10 times, and people buy it. If you, this is why you need a buy and hold strategy. Yep. Because if you look at, let's just look at the Dow Jones Industrial, which is 50 of the most highly traded stocks, which is supposed to represent our economy. It's only 50 stocks. It's algorithmically weighted. So in other words, some that trade more than some that trade less. There's an algorithm that kind of evens them out. It's almost like a handicap. But the companies like Facebook are on the Dow. Companies like U.S. Steel are no longer on the Dow, like they were back at the turn of the century. So it kind of represents the economy where it's at. If you think in terms of where we were during the Great Correction, the Great Recession, okay, we were 4,700, I think.
Yep. S&P was at 900.
Yeah, S&P was at 900. Now, if we were all bailing, the point of capitulation, right? The emotions of the market, we think we're the smartest guy in the room, all of a sudden we're, oh my God, what are we going to do, right? If you look back today, where the Dow was at 4,700 and the S&P was at 900, and they're both going this way over time, right? You look back and go, that was a great buy back then. Well, if it was a great buy then, isn't it a great buy now?
Of course.
Oh, if you're looking over time? Yeah. If Apple, when you bought it at $40 a share, was a good buy, or Starbucks, or whatever you believe in, Home Depot, and it's gone this way, isn't it still a good buy? If you're buying it for the right reason?
But the psychology tells you it's got to stop at some point.
But if you're a long-term investor, why does you care?
Exactly.
You don't take the day you retire, you don't take your money out, spread it on the kitchen table, and stare at it. It's still working for you.
Yeah.
And that's what people need to realize.
Yep.
Yeah, but we're afraid of the Price is Right mountain climber game, right? Right. Going.
That's what we're all afraid of.
He's yodeling.
Loft 100 Studios, the Big Biz Show, and our affiliates and our hosts are not registered investment advisors or broker-dealers.
Our show hosts make no commitment that the purchase of securities of companies profiled or otherwise mentioned in our programming
are suitable or advisable for any person, or that an investment in such securities will be profitable in general.
Given the nature of the company's profile and the lack of an active trading market for the securities, investing is highly speculative and carries a certain high degree of risk.
We profile selected publicly traded and privately held companies on our program.
Most of these companies that we profile have provided compensation to Loft 100 Studios and its hosts for the profile coverage.
From time to time, we sell shares of the companies profiled in the open market that we receive as compensation for coverage of client companies.
But never sell stocks. If we are speaking about interviewing or covering a public company who has paid compensation.
Specific questions on compensation can be obtained by contacting producer at sullygroup.com.
Listeners should verify all claims and do their own due diligence before investing in any securities mentioned on this program.
Investing in securities is speculative and carries a high degree of risk.
We encourage our investors to invest carefully and read the investor information available at the websites on the
Securities and Exchange Commission at sec.gov and or the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, FINRA, at www.finra.org.
Big Biz Show, Loft 100 Studios. Thank you, as always, for being along for the ride. Come to you from sunny Southern California. Mike Costa, Mary Godwin, Greg Todoroff, and Sully.
Hey, have you guys traveled anywhere this year? Anywhere abroad?
No.
Anywhere? Any of the
Not yet.
States? Have you guys-
Portland.
Huh?
I was in Portland.
Portland's abroad.
Going to Vegas next week.
Oh, yeah. This is all dance stuff, right?
Yes.
So here's my question. So I went to Europe a couple weeks ago, and it was a Fast and Furious trip. It was a fantastic trip. Good
Sure.
stuff. But came home day and a half later, deathly ill with the flu. Now I thought that these air filtration systems on airplanes are supposed to be bulletproof.
Better than an operating room
Right.
in a
Right.
hospital.
Yet I keep on hearing there's a 50-50 chance of you getting sick on an airplane. I mean, I was down for the count for Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. After we did a show Wednesday, I went home and I fell asleep for 3 hours. Just crazy. And then kind of came out of it starting the next day.
Well, I mean, how much can you really sanitize an airplane?
Well, but here, so this is what I did. So they gave you alcohol swabs, and I did the seat belt and the freaking screen, and the thing and the thing and the other thing, and even on the international flight. I thought you could do it the best job I could do. I took it. I had one of my like, okay, I'm coated in disinfectant.
Right.
My question is, so I tested for COVID like literally once a day because I was like, it's got to be COVID. I haven't felt this crap since I was a kid. Right? Nothing each time, absolutely. And we got the good ones. You know? We got the antigen test. Is that there's two types. It was, remember the old days?
Yeah.
This is the one that takes half hour, like the whole thing. You have to go to your brain pin.
Right.
And then get the
I liked that.
And it was nothing. Well, yeah. Oh my God. You knew you did it right when you had to sneeze.
Brains out.
So,
Exactly.
I did it right. I sneezed 3 times.
Yeah.
So are you guys still concerned? Because like what Howie talked about earlier today and last week about consumer confidence post-COVID. Everything's still post-COVID economy.
Yeah.
Are you still really worried about it?
Well, I just got a call today from a friend of mine who she has it, her husband has it, and one of her daughters has it. COVID. They flew home from Canada.
Is it debilitating COVID like it used to be?
They thought it was a runny nose and that was it.
See, we always thought that's what it was going to be.
Yeah.
I'm more afraid of the flu because I think the flu makes you feel crappier than COVID.
Oh, yeah,
does.
for sure. So you're saying what you had was the flu?
Yes.
You tested positive for the flu?
No, I didn't test for the flu, and I can.
Gotcha.
And you can go get a test for the flu.
Yeah, you can go
I
get
figured,
a
why
test.
bother?
How long after will you know?
30 minutes.
It's like a 30-minute test.
No, but I'm saying, how long after the symptoms? Like if you go, can you go a week later? And
probably not now.
No.
Yeah.
I knew that this time the Zycam didn't work.
But you're okay. So you're thinking you got it on the plane and it was airborne and
sure. I'm just wondering.
Really? Because there are some theories that you can't get it with airborne, it has to be something where you touch something and
Right.
then either touch your eye, your ear, your nose, or your
Well, let me
mouth.
say at the same time.
And that's how you get it into your.
At the same time,
Right, and you do it without knowing you do it.
So here's the same
Right.
time. I got a sty in my eye.
Oh.
Okay, at the same time.
And you rhymed.
And yeah, I did. A lot of alliteration there.
Yeah.
So I just thought it was really interesting. Like, and of course you go to, oh my God, is that a bruise? I have leukemia. You know, like honestly.
Right.
And so I wonder, because I think our economy is overly sensitive to the idea of COVID anymore. I think it's an excuse now.
I think there are a lot of people out there that are just convinced it's going to come back the way it did in 2020. And
Totally.
Well, it will
take
someday.
over
About 50 years,
everything,
about
shut everything
100 years
down.
from now, like the Spanish flu. I was in Spain when I caught it, by the way. I could feasibly say I got this.
yeah. I love it.
I'm patient zero. I brought the Spanish flu back.
I was one
So
of
I got
those
that
people.
going for me.
You remember me during COVID. I was a freak
You were on the
about
phone
it.
every day.
I was like,
I go,
test
Mary.
everybody, wipe the whole thing down.
Oh,
I
this
wouldn't
place,
come in.
we just took the studio every day and went
Yeah.
inside of a big thing of
I was
sanitizer.
super paranoid about it. But this friend that
See, I was paranoid because of lawsuits. You were paranoid because you thought that you were going to get it.
Yeah, and I didn't want my 80, 90-year-old mom to die. So I was like, I don't know. I was worried about it, about people actually dying. But now this friend that called me today, she's supposed to come to my show, my kids' show this weekend. And I was like, you're still coming, right? Just put a mask on. I mean, I was like, I don't care anymore because it's.
You worried at all? Are you worried at all?
Never. I was not worried. I am not worried.
I was worried when we had a.
You weren't worried?
Not at all.
Remember when Russ's significant other, Nina, went to the hospital? And
Yes.
died? That's when I got, we're like, oh my
That's
God,
what
this
I
is
was
actually
worried
killing
about.
people.
This is it's real.
Yeah, they had
No,
to get respirators?
No, I did not socially distance. I did not, I did all the stuff you were supposed to do for the optics, but in reality, no, I was not doing any of that.
I was doing it all the time.
On an economic standpoint. On an economic standpoint, I'll give you this. We didn't know. I'll tell you. So the good things in the economy that came out of COVID. All the al fresco dining that's still outside.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Bad things, not as many parking spots.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm having ham and eggs on somebody's parking spot. You'll notice there was never any outdoor dining where there was a thing you could feed the meter.
It's hilarious though, isn't it? Like I'll have the scrambled eggs with a side of road dust.
They're all sanitary. We're sitting over roadkill and maybe some urine, vomit from.
The plexiglass shield that kept the germs from going up and over
that's
into the
fantastic.
next.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That technology was amazing.
Did it not? Did it not?
It's like no smoking on an airplane.
Yeah, right.
No smoking.
The
and the
smoking
smoke
section?
Yeah.
stopped right there.
Yeah.
Well, that's like when my kids were kids. They were talking about, well, it was a red light. Well, honey, it's not a brick wall. It's a red light.
Yeah.
Like maybe guys not looking at the red light. Well, it was a red light, so I just went. Like,
Oh my God.
But my point was, it was like, did they? Again, we didn't know what we didn't know. I'm going to give you that. But some of this utter stupidity, out of just sheer panic, like when we closed the beaches in San Diego.
That was
Filled in the skate parks with sand.
The one thing that's going to get you healthy is fresh air and salt water. What do they say when you get a cut? If you grew up in
Salt
Southern
water.
California, go take a walk on the beach.
Yeah, carterize it.
It'll solve the problem a week faster.
Big time.
Nope, nobody's going to the beach. Nobody have any fresh air. Let's get people indoors. Let's get them all hugging indoors.
What mask did you wear? Did you wear like
James, you gave me those masks. Yeah,
N95.
What the
James was on my
James
team.
gave me a bunch of them. What are the N95? You double masked before those things came out. Remember, we had the regular ones, and then you had those N95, which actually were cooler looking.
So you're supposed to wear
James
that.
gave me a blue one and a black one. So I was very, Today I would have worn the blue one.
The N95s, I think you're supposed to wear for maybe a maximum of like 8 hours, and then put another one on.
Why?
Because of the way they filter, and after a while, the efficacy of them wears off.
See, this is all urban legend. I want to get someone who actually knows.
Bring Fosse over here.
I want to get
All I got to say is that my one N95 that I wore the whole time had food stains on it. It was brown. There was Cheeto dust.
You got sicker from the inside than what was coming on the outside.
Yeah.
The little elastic band hand was super glued on because it snapped off.
You couldn't afford the extra $3. Remember, those things were like $5. The other was like, but the other thing too I found interesting.
This said mask. I got a mask.
So San Diego, generally known as the craft brewery center of the universe.
Yeah.
All those breweries, and we know a lot of the owners because we're here in San Diego, and of course, you know, it's mead. The point is that those guys got really smart really fast. They had all that extra beer left over, and they couldn't sell because the bars were closed.
Yep.
So what they did, what they couldn't sell across the counter, they distilled it and made hand sanitizer. I still have hand sanitizers from at least 3 breweries. I'm keeping them like baseball cards.
I love it.
Smart.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was Ballast Point one of them? That.
No, I had Hess.
No, Hess was on.
I had Hess. I had AleSmith. I had Pacific Distillery, who makes whiskey, and I had something culture.
My favorite thing of COVID was that I had more time with my kids. I got them home longer because they were teenagers.
Is that you could drive around.
Oh yeah, that too. No traffic.
Get up to LA in an hour.
It was like, hey, this is
yeah, right.
We had a coffee place down the street that at 4 o'clock every day, you go in and they pour you a beer and you can stand out outside. It almost felt, and there was like 2 of us. It was like.
It is the Big Biz Show for the Loft 100 Studios, Southern California. Wherever you are watching, wherever you are listening, thank you for being along for the ride. I'm Mike Costa. That handsome guy right there across the bar is our executive producer, Greg Todoroff. And of course, the guy right there, that's Sully.
Oh, my
That is Sully.
You and Biden.
120 million TV homes strong in 175 countries. Thank you to BizTV, American Life Network, Bloomberg Financiero, soon to be Bloomberg EU, and of course, American Forces Network in 175 countries and all the ships at sea. God bless our military men and women who are serving our country overseas and underway.
Always.
Look at the day trader trio over there. Trace has been jogging. Or got very sick. And he's selling products from Acapulco.
He finally plugged in that treadmill you bought him.
You know, we're recreational legal. We just don't have an infrastructure yet, so understand. All right, great to see you today. Of course, the familiar face, Dr. Jonathan Javitt, who is the founder, director, and chairman of the board of this little company called NRX Pharmaceuticals. Great to see you. How are you, sir?
It's wonderful to see
You're starting to be sort of a member of the cast. You've been here so long.
Big time.
And now there's a Bizumentary coming out. Of course, we have a trademarked documentary called a Bizumentary, which is basically about Jonathan's space that the network wanted to do and give the opportunity to get some exposure for you guys. And we're going to be able to see that on BizTV as well as the other networks here coming on very shortly. And you'll see it pretty in high rotation here for the next 9 months. But it's great to see you. And there's lots of stuff to talk about. And then we're going to spend a few segments talking to you. And of course, you have a couple of guests we brought on. Of course, Mike Taylor, our investment banking expert, is going to be with us as well. And of course, coming up later in the program, Dr. David Feifel. And I'll let you explain who he is. But let's talk about ketamine. We've been talking about that ever since we met you. Ketamine being sort of aimed for the standard of care for suicidal ideation and a number of other things. My question for you is, if ketamine is going to be the standard of care, then why the heck hasn't the FDA approved it yet? Or why has anybody brought it up before?
Well, you know, it's a great question. And in fact, on next Thursday, the Reagan-Udall Foundation in Washington is hosting an all-day conference on exactly that question with the FDA, with the public stakeholders. But the short answer to the question...
Nobody asked nicely.
Nobody asked at all. Now, that's not exactly true. Johnson & Johnson did ask and did get approval for a nasal form of ketamine, and that's used in some patients, but most doctors want to be using the intravenous ketamine, and nobody's asked.
Real quickly, because you talked about this at the very beginning when we talked to you. Talk to us about the difference between the nasal, the oral, and the intravenous, as far as efficacy and safety and so on and so forth.
So as far as oral ketamine goes, nobody knows. It's the Wild West, and the Drug Enforcement Administration has shut down the guy who was mailing homemade oral ketamine around the country and telling patients to use it.
Probably a good idea that he said.
Probably a good idea. Probably drugs that are used in the United States should be proven to be safe and effective for their intended use and not to be abusable. So nasal ketamine and intravenous ketamine achieve similar things. They get ketamine into the bloodstream. Now, if you do it with a needle in an IV bag, you know exactly how much ketamine is going into the bloodstream, and you can achieve a steady state dose. If you administer ketamine through the nose, then you're giving a blast of ketamine, you're getting a sharp spike, and then you're getting a downdraft. So you have to keep giving nasal sprays up to 6 times an hour to maintain that steady dose. And the anatomy of the nose has a tremendous amount. Some people have these turbinates that stick into the middle of their airway that diverts the ketamine down the back of your throat into your stomach. So the pharmacology of nasal ketamine is much less regularized than the pharmacology of intravenous ketamine.
You talk about multiple doses in nasal ketamine. It brings up the question about how many doses at all. So when we talk about intravenous ketamine and as a treatment, is this something that would happen once a week? Is it something that happens once a month? Is it as needed?
Well, it's a great question. We know that the pharmacologic effect of ketamine wears off between 3 and 5 days. Now, does that mean that somebody's going to immediately have a recurrence of depression or recurrence of suicidality? That's a very individual thing.
And is there an endpoint, by the way, to treatment at that point, right?
And that, too, is a very individual thing. Bipolar depression, which is the form of depression that's most likely to be associated with suicide. Think Matthew Perry, Robin Williams, Kate Spade, Anthony Bourdain. That's an episodic disease where most people thought of Robin Williams as sort of a manic guy. They used to call it manic depression.
Right.
These are people who are the brightest light in the room. But when they get depressed, it's lethal. In fact, if you know 2 people with bipolar depression, you have one of those 2 people is probably going to try to kill themselves over the course of their lifetime. If you know 5 people with bipolar depression, one of them is going to succeed. Whereas what they call major depressive disorder or unipolar depression, you have people whose life goes between okay and pretty sad, and those people are actually much less likely to harm themselves.
No kidding. The name of the company, by the way, NRX Pharmaceuticals, they're publicly traded. NRXP is a stock symbol. NRXP, we've got Dr. Jonathan Javitt here. So talk about the intersection of NRXP and this question, if ketamine is headed to be the standard of care.
Well, so as far,
have you talked about the FDA and where you?
As far as we know, we're the first people who are heading to the FDA with an intravenous form of ketamine that should be approvable. And in order to do that, we had to put together efficacy data proving that not only is there a difference between ketamine and placebo, which is what you have to do with most drugs, but as you just saw with the massive failure of ecstasy to get approved, MDMA to get approved, the FDA said, no, if you're going to try to get approval for a drug that can have a psychedelic effect, then you can't just test it against placebo because people who don't get a psychedelic effect will know they didn't get the drug. You need to test it against a drug that gives people sort of a sham effect.
Right.
So that they're not sure which drug they got. So one of the studies that we're presenting to FDA is one where ketamine's been compared to a drug called midazolam, which is commonly used in minor surgeries, in cataract surgery. It makes you feel funny, it can make you feel drowsy, but it's not an NMDA antagonist drug. It doesn't have the same pharmacologic effect as ketamine. And in that study also, ketamine had a potent anti-suicidal, antidepressant effect, whereas midazolam didn't. And when they took the midazolam patients and said, now let's give you ketamine, they had the same ketamine effect as the people who got put on ketamine in the first place. And then the third study we're going to show FDA is one where ketamine was randomized against electroshock therapy. And technically it was non-inferior to electroshock therapy, but if you actually look at the numbers, it was better than electroshock therapy in treating depression.
And we've talked about that in past shows, and I think the Bizumentary is going to touch on that as well. So you've basically made ketamine a life-saving drug. The path forward needs to be, where can we get it? Clinics, correct? That's got to be path forward?
Well, first the path forward is how do we put it in a bottle? Because not only do you have to be able to show the FDA that the drug works, you have to show that you know how to make it, you know how to make it the same way every time. Because the generic formulation of ketamine hasn't been reformulated since the Korean War. And one of the things that's in it that people don't recognize is a pretty toxic preservative. called benzanthonium chloride, which you can find on Wikipedia. Wikipedia will tell you this is a
If Mike
poison.
could spell it, we'd find it.
Yeah, yeah. Wikipedia will tell you this is a poison. You don't want it in your bottle.
Stay right there. We're going to keep you over. Plus, we got a couple extra guests coming up here to talk about the path forward in terms of clinics and everything else. Dr. Jonathan Javitt, Chairman of the Board, NRX Pharmaceuticals, stock symbol NRXP. You can go to nrxpharma.com. More Big Biz Show continues. Stand by.
It is the Big Biz Show. We are in sunny Southern California, live from the Loft 100 studios. In over 175 countries, all the ships at sea on the American Forces Network. For brave men and women of the United States Armed Forces, we thank you for what you do, what you've done for us. Mike Costa, Greg Todorov, our executive producer, Sully behind the bar, and the bar is stacked.
I'll tell you what, we have a confab.
Look at this.
Thank God the FCC doesn't let you actually drink on television. Don't forget,
Allegedly.
125 million TV homes strong with BizTV, American Life Network, as well as Bloomberg Financiero and Bloomberg EU to come. Big Biz Show, bigbizshow.com. Thanks for having us today. So, Dr. Jonathan Javitt is the founder, director, and chairman of the board of NRX Pharmaceuticals. We got a couple of folks. One familiar, of course, is Mike Taylor. Mike Taylor, our investment banking expert on the program, has been on for a number of years, on and off, and has been on lately because he is a big proponent of NRX Pharma, and of course the soon-to-be spinoff of Hope Therapeutics. But let's talk about this unfamiliar face, soon to be very familiar, because you're in a 1-hour bizumentary here on BizTV.
Right.
That's going to be airing, I think, for about 9 months in heavy rotation, meaning a couple times a week. His name is Dr. Feifel, David Feifel. He is professor emeritus of psychology at UCSD. Let me tell you about UCSD.
Uh-oh, here we go.
Let me bring you back to a gentler time. The year was 1978. At the time, I was a 3-sport athlete with scholarships and a 4.0 grade point average. And the best school to go to was UCSD. I was weeded out the first semester. I swear to God.
Mr. Sullivan, you actually have to open the books.
No, it wasn't about that. It was about, back in the day.
It was about the dean's daughter, we heard.
No, that was the 7 other schools I went to. You remember, I don't know if anybody else at this table can remember this. You may remember film strips.
Of course.
Remember film strips in the studio?
Of course.
Or in the classroom? I was going to, as a pre-med at the 4th college, which is now called Warren's College.
Right.
Okay? Yeah. We're the first class at Warren College. First of all, I went to a trigonometry class. Well, what the hell is this? And number 2, they pull out the film strip in open heart surgery. I was out.
Okay.
I took a vocal music scholarship at USD the very next semester.
Yeah.
That was. I think we're all happy that I'm not saving lives here today. Great to have you along today. I know that we've been arguing about who gets the first question, and going into this, if you're just joining us, we're talking about how NRX has basically created a ketamine life-saving drug, and the next step in this is got to be clinics, FDA, the whole 9 yards, which we're all here to talk about. But Mike, won the coin toss about the first question.
Well, Dr. Feifel, you opened up the first ketamine clinic in the United States. What is the secret sauce to that? I mean, how does that happen?
It happens out of desperation. Desperation for wanting better tools to treat your patients.
Sure.
I went into psychiatry because I felt that it was ripe for a golden era. At the time, when I was in medical school, neuroscience was just exploding, and we were getting all these new tools, be able to image the brain, and I thought, wow, this is going to be a golden era. This is the field to go. The brain is the ultimate organ. And then, so I really prepared for a kind of to be a career to really be on the forefront of that. I did a PhD in neuroscience, did my MD degree, went to UCSD, which was one of the top research places, and decade into my career, I was like, what's going on? I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I was still writing the same medication prescriptions that, my mentors in medical school were writing when they were just residents and things like that. So I thought, nothing's translating into new treatments. And I was thinking, I might just miss this revolution. It might be the residents I'm teaching who get it. And then some things really started to break in a good way. And one of those things was a couple of small studies that came out of, first one out of Yale, and then another one out of NIMH, replicating it, that ketamine, which is a drug that everyone learns about in medical school as an dissociative anesthetic. Like, nobody associates it as a psychiatric drug, but some curious researchers at Yale who were seeing some interesting things with ketamine did a pilot study, and they showed that at lower doses, at sub-anesthetic doses, a 40-minute infusion was like a blockbuster. I mean, these people who had treatment-resistant depression didn't respond to anything. And most people in the field, including myself when I first read that, just like wrote it off because it's just too good to be true. Because not only was it effective, it was effective, within a span of hours, which is in psychiatry. We don't brag about how fast our treatment. We're just happy when they work.
Yeah.
So I said this is not possible, and we see a lot of studies come out. It was a small number of people, I think, it never gets replicated. So I blew it off. 6 years later, it was replicated, and I said, I'm still skeptical, but I'm so desperate. What if it's half as good as these studies? So I went to UCSD, the powers that be, and said, I want to give my patients with depression ketamine.
When you talk about desperation, are you desperate because you're losing patients to suicide, or
you're seeing veteran numbers? You're seeing the same numbers we're seeing, or is it something different?
Look, you do lose people, but even when you don't lose people, you lose people.
Sure.
Because when somebody lives with depression, they may be alive, but
they're not really sometimes.
It's gone.
They're really not.
His name is Dr. David Feifel. He is the professor emeritus of psychiatry at University of California, San Diego. So the question is, clinic-wise, and it kind of goes into a two-part question for the two of you, and then of course there's investor will and investor accreditation when you talk about investors being interested in this, which is why I've got you all three here. Is this a nationwide type thing? Do you put these in every city? Do you make it a destination point as they have some cancer treatment centers across the country, or do you make this with every area of dominant influence in the United States, in which there's 16 of them, to where you don't have to go far to get? What's the ultimate goal for you?
I think the ultimate goal, yes, is everyone having access, and everyone being able to, without too much inconvenience, being able to go and get this remarkable treatment.
Mike, you and I have worked on a ton of deals together, because everybody knows in my other life, I'm an investment banker and run a venture fund and a couple of other hedge funds. And you and I, when we first talked about this as something to take a look at, neither of us were, other than, looking at this company as a publicly traded company that had a long way to go, got emotionally involved in this thing. And suddenly we see this political will with investors that you talk to as you represent billions of dollars of family office money. What's been the tipping point when you're talking to people, and for you specifically, when we're talking about Hope Therapeutics, which I'll let Jonathan explain in just 1 second, but talk about that part of it.
Yeah, I think what we've started to see is that from a business standpoint, obviously, unfortunately, there's a very large market, and the ketamine clinics, I think, and what we're trying to do with Hope Therapeutics is to really build out a viable place that's medically backed for people to go who are struggling suicidal ideations or feelings of harm.
And it doesn't exist now.
It doesn't exist.
And there's not to mention there's not
too many clinics are confused with med spas that do ketamine on Monday and vitamin B on Tuesday. And
that's a typical week for Mike, except for the ketamine.
Well,
full massage on Wednesday?
It's donuts on Monday.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
But I mean, the point is, if you take this nationwide under the banner of Hope Therapeutics, as we've talked about before, talk about what that looks like.
So, our objective is to think of DaVita. If you're a patient who needs dialysis, you know that you can walk into any DaVita clinic anywhere in the United States and get reliable care according to protocols that everybody understands with a quality that everybody understands. And right now, ketamine clinics are the Wild West. You've got some highly credible clinics that are led by psychiatrists, where not only are they treating people with the drug, but they've got a whole therapeutic environment built around it so that they know that these people who have real risk of self-harm are safe. And then you've got a bunch of people who heard about it, who are hanging out a sign, who may not have any real training in psychiatry at all, who are just slinging ketamine without FDA approval, without being under any kind of safety umbrella, and people are reading about some unfortunate happenings as a result. So the objective is to build a national brand that people can rely on, that the FDA can trust, that the regulators can trust, that the insurers can trust.
And the investors can trust as well, correct?
Yeah, because right now the alternative for people with suicidal depression is electroshock therapy.
Dr. Feifel, what's the connection point here? What's the last mile solution to get us there, in your opinion?
I think Jonathan pointed out a lot of the needs. That is to bring something that right now is very unregulated, non-standardized, to weed out some of the bad players, to get the quality up a little bit more standardized, and so that anyone can go to a place and know that this is going to be done the right way. Right now, that's not the case.
Dr. David Feifel, you guys all come back together. We need a whole show like this. Forget him, forget him. In fact, I wouldn't even be here. Let's have you host the show. In fact, let's do that Monday. Next Monday.
That's right. I don't have to eat that week. No worries.
All right, coming up, Shep Hyken, our Chief Customer Satisfaction Officer, is going to talk about first world problems in a...
It is the Big Biz Show for the Loft 100 Studios. We are located in beautiful, sunny Southern California. My customer, Robert Godwin, Greg Tatarov, and Sully.
How are you?
We're doing well.
And the Day Trader Trio.
DTT.
Looking a little different today.
Trace is wearing a hat.
And a mask.
And a mask.
And apparently he's been sick. You be you, Trace. You be you, brother.
He's been jogging.
Been jogging. Poor Trace. Hey, great to have you along today. I continue to talk about customer service, and I had a friend of mine call me the other day, and I think this is a new television show, and he calls it First World Problems. He goes, how do you contend as a person who can even stay at, let's say, the top tier Marriott, or even a Four Seasons? I don't know. What's in that? What's a bigger hotel?
Peninsula.
The Ritz.
Ritz. Yeah. Right.
And your biggest complaint is, well, they didn't get my wife's door before mine.
Yeah.
Versus a person who's going to see their mother who's dying and can't afford a Southwest plane ticket and a Hampton Inn, and a Hampton Inn, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And he calls it first world problems. And the issue is, I immediately thought of Shep Hyken, because customer service, we all have a right to get what we paid for. But at what right can't you complain? At what right can you stay at a place like that and still be a good person and realize that you have, like, every problem we have is first world problems versus a majority of society? And I thought, what a compelling topic, especially for a guy like Shep Hyken. Shep Hyken, of course, is the Chief Amazement Officer of Shepard Presentations. He has several books, one of which is called I'll Be Back, How to Get Customers to Come Back Again and Again. He is the smartest guy I know in terms of customer service experience, and of course, he's also one of the best keynote speakers in the country. And I give you Shep Hyken. Shep, how do businesses contend with, okay, we're going to try to, this is a delicate topic. We're going to try to make you as special as the next guy, but without looking like the next guy is spending more money and has a first world problem issue. Is this something that companies have to even deal with? Because when he brought it up to me, I started feeling bad immediately about my analogy with you all the time. I want a seamless customer service experience when I pull up to the valet, ... and then from then on, you should stop listening.
Yeah. So at that Motel 6, they don't have valet.
Right.
Yeah. But that's first
and the
problem.
Ritz, pretty sure the Ritz doesn't have self-serve cereal in the morning.
No.
That's good. I like the way you come back on that. Hey, here's the deal. I just wrote about this the other day. We call them awkward customers. We call them customers who don't want to do business with. But I'll give you a true story from Herb Kelleher, the first chairman of Southwest Airlines, who received a letter from a passenger who complained that there was nothing more than peanuts, that they had to fight for their seat. There was no first class. And Herb writes to that passenger, "Thank you very much for letting me know. There's plenty of airlines that can take care of you. We wish you the best of luck. And if you ever come back, please do. Love, Herb."
So, and by the way, and that's a left-handed way to handle it. And I think there's always competition. And what he was basically saying is, look, this is the way we choose to handle our business and to make a democratic sort of process of flying with us. And if you don't like it, he didn't say if you don't like it, lump it. He said, hey, there's other people that could accommodate differently. You're also not going to get to San Francisco from LA for $65 either. Right.
But it's fun to send the competition your tough customers, and then they may realize we had it better back at the other place. Let's go back and that's why I always say, as bad as the customer gets, unless they're absolutely like disrespectful and there's no way you would ever have them back because of the way they treated your people, I would say leave the door ever so slightly ajar, just in case they want to come back, and give them a chance to make up for their sins. They can apologize, they can do whatever, but maybe they'll come to realization that you are offering the best that you can. By the way, I joked about Motel 6. I can't remember if it was a Super 8, a Motel 6, but some brand that was at the lower level. And believe it or not, I had a client that had a conference at one of these hotels, and we were there, and I thought to myself, if you transplant any of these people at the front desk to the Ritz-Carlton would love having these people working for them.
No kidding.
So even though, you might get self-serve cereal at the Motel 6 and not at the Ritz, you do still deserve to be treated with respect and dignity.
Is it because our expectations are too high at these places? If you check into a Hyatt, you have a different expectation than if you check into that Motel 6. And maybe our expectations are too high, though. Maybe it's the fact that
you're paying more, though. Think how much
that's a good point. That's a great point.
So you're paying more money, you expect more.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Hey, Shep, I want to talk about. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's like a utility. I mean, you expect. What am I paying for? I'm getting a room with a TV, clock, radio. That's about it, and a bathroom. If I'm willing to pay more for fancier sheets and a fluffier bed, great. And I expect that. If you're going to guarantee me the level of service at the Ritz, you better deliver. And if not, set my expectations. I stayed at a Comfort Inn, and they go, hey, we don't have any mints for the pillow, but we've got this. And they pull out this little basket of like $2 long candy bars. And I'm thinking to myself, the room rate's $54 and they're giving me a $2 candy bar. Basically almost 5% of their cost goes to my late night snack.
But you went back, didn't you?
That's pretty amazing.
I'm talking about it. I won't tell you the name of the hotel brand, but the initials were Comfort Inn.
Shep, we always talk to you about customer service satisfaction, like the reviews and also the surveys that you get after you.
Yeah, are those real? Come on.
No, they are. And you know what? I love to do them, especially after getting to know you. And I realize how important it is for the brands to have these, or the businesses to have these satisfaction surveys. But here's the thing is sometimes I'll click through and they make it so easy for me. And then other times I got to go step by step, and then I'm like, you lost me. You lost my train of thought.
You're done.
What are some tips? Do you have some tips for how to make it easy for people to do?
Yeah, first of all, short is better. 3 questions. Ask me a couple of 1 to 5 or 1 to 10 questions that take literally seconds, and then hit me with an open-ended, like, why'd you give me that? What can we do to make it better? Simple. Keep it simple, and you'll get more people responding.
Shep, I got to tell you, we need you in studio. We need you here for a whole hour for 3 days straight and do the Shep Hyken experience.
I'm excited thinking about it. Let's do it. I'll let you know when I'm back.
It's ready. And he's going to say when he leaves, I'll be back.
Yep. I'll be back.
Shep Hyken. Shep, thank you so much for being patient today. We had a crazy day on the set. Shep Hyken, Chief Amazement Officer. Of course, I'll be back. One of his many, many books. You can go to his website, hyken.com, and that does it for us. We'll see you on Tuesday. Big Biz Show, out.